I'm Ednie Wilson and I teach traditional music and dance, and more specifically I teach the Northumbrian small pipes, which is a total joy because it's the iconic sound of the northeast and the Northumbrian coastline and hills, and it's got this marvellous music that was written for it, and it's wonderful to introduce people to just how hypnotic and fantastic the drones of the Northumbrian small pipes are. You get hooked into the drones, it's a bit of a drug really, and it's that marvellous sound that makes you want to play the tunes against it. It helps you to think about dance tunes, and it brings you closer to our culture of the northeast.
Now, most people are probably most familiar with the Scottish bagpipes. Can you tell us a little bit about the Northumbrian small pipes and how they differ and how they came about, perhaps?
Okay, so bagpipes you find them everywhere across the whole of the northern hemisphere. You find bagpipes because if you think what people in historical times had to play, they banged drums, they played hard things, they could pluck strings, and they could blow through reeds and tubes. And so the bagpipe became a development. You'll find it in Norway and Russia and Scotland and Ireland and in the northeast of England and across other places in England, because what you've got is a reservoir of air, which means you can keep this drone sound going all the time. And the Northumbrian small pipes, like one or two others, instead of blowing down a mouthpiece to fill the bag of air, you've got a bellow, which works like your fire bellows, and it fills the bag full of air. Once you've got that constancy of pressure of air, you've got this beautiful sound coming out of the drones, and then you can play lovely tunes on the chanter. The small pipes, the Northumbrian small pipes, have this one unique, fantastic difference, is that unlike any other bagpipe, they're closed up at the end. So think about a recorder. When you blow down the recorder, you get a note coming out the end, always. On the small pipes, if you close all the notes, all the holes on the chanter, it makes no sound. So it becomes quite a staccato instrument. You play one hole, one finger, one note, one at a time. And if you want really fast and jaunty tunes, you have to learn to be very dexterous about that, or you can play slow, lilting airs. But you always get the drones because you've got the bag of air, and uniquely, you get this more unique sound of the small pipes, because when the chanter holes are closed, there are no notes. That's the huge difference. It also means that the fingering's different to just about any other instrument, because you don't play any combinations. When you're learning to play the recorder or the flute, you have to learn to do 2 of these and 3 of those and half of that. With this one, you open one hole, one finger, one note, one at a time.
Now, today your purpose at the gathering is to introduce people to the Northumbrian pipes, to give them a taster session. How's that gone so far?
So far, they're brilliant, of course. I mean, it's quite a thing, because how do you know if you want to play the pipes? Guitars and pianos and keyboards are quite accessible, but to actually have a go at playing the pipes, you need to have a set of pipes, and that makes them not a very accessible instrument. So I'm lucky enough to have a full set of student pipes and to bring them along to actually run one of the face-to-face workshops at this year's MORPETH'S Gathering, which obviously still recovering through COVID, we haven't been able to do the hundreds of wonderful things we might have been able to do before. We've now got live workshops. This is one of them, and it's the pipes that I bring along enable people to have a go. It's a taster. That's what we're trying to do.
And how difficult are the pipes to learn, and how long does it take you to reach a sort of reasonable level of proficiency?
Well, I do think that's a bit of how long is the piece of string sort of question, because some people get completely hooked on it and will go away and practice for hours and hours, and they'll come to it in a shorter number of weeks or months or whatever. But my very first pipes tutor when I was learning, which is about 40 years ago, said if you haven't thrown them in the back of the fire as driftwood by the end of the first year, you might make a piper, which filled me full of hope. I don't know how to answer that. I think you can get a good taster in a day. I think you can do that, especially on these pipes that these lovely people are learning from, because they're student pipes, so they're very simple. They haven't got a lot of the iron work on them, and they're a bit easier to play. And then I think you can, if you're hooked on the sound and you think, I could learn to play these, then I run longer courses and I take on one-to-one people to play, but so do other teachers in the region as well. I'm not the only teacher. I think I'm the only teacher that's got a full set of class pipes, so you can have a go.
And when's the best time to start learning? Are you best to start young, or can you start at any age?
Oh no, I have an answer for that. The best time to start learning is when you are totally enamoured by the sound and full of enthusiasm. So young people can pick things up like butterflies and put them down just as quickly, and an older person may have more time and more enthusiasm to want to do it. So it's about your personal determination to do it rather than an age thing.
And are there more young people interested in playing the pipes these days? Have they been influenced perhaps by people like Catherine Tickell, or not?
Oh, I'm sure they have. Northumberland actually is quite an amazing place, because Northumberland Music Service and the Northumberland Music Partnership actually are teaching folk tunes, certainly in schools, and have some capacity to teach young people in schools to learn to play the Northumbrian small pipes. I mean, that makes Northumberland just fantastic in my view. That's brilliant. And yes, younger people are coming to it, but we've also got things in the northeast like the folk degree, and we have a really grand tradition, which means that local people do know that they've got a musical cultural tradition. So that coming to have a go at it and knowing it exists and enjoying the music is out there to kind of, there's a rich resource to then introduce more people to play. And there are young people, yes, and they're going to the pub sessions and the club sessions, and they're playing with dance teams and in folk groups and ceilidh bands. Not in their thousands, it's an obscure instrument and it's quite expensive as a hobby.
Yes, how much does it cost to buy a set of pipes?
Well, it varies, and simpler sets at auction still go for sort of in the £500 to £600 range, and if you want to have a set made for you, which is beautiful, and they're my babies and I enjoy playing them, but you're looking at about £1,500 to £1,600.
Now, you mentioned before COVID. What effect has that had on musicians, generally traditional musicians, and perhaps teachers like yourself? How difficult has it been to persevere during the various lockdowns that there have been?
I think, like the whole of the cultural industry, everybody got hit. So venues that would have booked you, big events, it's a very ceremonial instrument, so things like weddings and funerals and citizenship ceremonies, university graduations, all of those things were hit where players would have played. From a point of view of learning, we haven't been able to get together as groups. I migrated onto teaching on Zoom, which, you know, was a learning curve for me, and it can be done, but it isn't half as much fun or as enjoyable an experience as coming along to a workshop day and joining in with other people and feeling that you're not alone in the struggle of learning to play.
And what about events like this, like the MORPETH'S Northumbrian Gathering? How important are they in the future of instruments like the Northumbrian pipes?
Oh, I think they're hugely important. The sense of preserving our living culture, our living heritage, and passing that on and making it visible and audible. It's just, and we need it back. We need to celebrate that we are a unique part of the world, and that we have these lovely songs and dialect poetry and craft, and not the least of which is, I mean, the craft of making the small pipes. That's now on the endangered crafts list from the Crafts Council because there are so few makers.
How many are there I think I read somewhere there's perhaps only a dozen people making pipes. Would that be,
Yeah,
would that be
that's
right?
about right. Living in the northeast, I think there's, well, there are some people who I would call amateur makers in that they've made their own pipes. There's nothing wrong with their craft work, it's beautiful, or their technical skills. But professional makers who are making a living out of selling bagpipes, you're down to a handful. But there are pipe makers across the whole of the country now who are making a range of pipes and have the capacity and the ability to make Northumbrian small pipes. But they may also be making Scottish bagpipes, French musette pipes, Irish Uilleann pipes, English mouth-blown pipes, border pipes. So they're not solely making Northumbrian small pipes. I don't think you could make a living out of that at the moment, easily.
So what's the future for the pipes? Does it look good?
I think it does, actually. And I think that you're in a sort of a circle of enough people wanting to play them, therefore wanting to buy them, therefore the makers seeing a market for making it. Do you get where I'm coming from? You need that whole picture to work together. But people do love the music and they do love the sound of it. And little by little, as we come out of COVID, you're hearing more and more of it out and about again in public places. And thank you to the MORPETH'S Gathering, actually, for having this workshop. That's fantastic.